news just coming down. Raheem Mostert, he's going to be out 8 weeks now with knee cartilage injury, and he'll go on short-term IR for 8 weeks here. So right here, Mostert, he was a player I said to avoid in many fantasy drafts videos before the season started, and once again in the nick of time, first game, first quarter of the season here, Raheem Mostert went down yesterday with the knee injury, and right now he's a player, honestly, you just can't count on in fantasy football. Even if he comes back in the 8-10 weeks, whatever the deal's going to be here for the 49ers, he's a player that, in my opinion, he can't handle the full workload, obviously. Each and every season, he's been missed multiple games, or he's had a pretty devastating injury, and now Mostert, he was drafted mostly anywhere from the 6th to the 8th round in most fantasy drafts coming into the season, but now he's gone, and it's next man up over there in San Francisco. And yesterday we saw Eli Mitchell have a big ball game here in relief. Raheem Mostert, he had 19 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown in the ball game at the Detroit Lions. So right here, he had a great game, no doubt about it. Trey Sermon, I guess he's in the doghouse or whatever. He was inactive for this ball game, but right here, both these guys are going to be pickups, obviously, if they're on your waiver wire. Obviously, Eli Mitchell in my waiver wire running back video, I recommended him as the #1 ad this week. And right now, he's definitely going to get work no matter what, even if Sermon's active. I like Mitchell a lot. He showed a lot of good things in that ball game, even though I know it was versus a weak Detroit Lion defense. But he got a good workload, and he got the job done for this 49er team. They didn't miss a beat with him over there in the backfield. And right here, he will be my #1 priority over Sermon if Sermon's on your waiver wire. Mitchell's available in 91% of fantasy leagues. But after the waiver wire is this week here, he's probably going to be owned in about 50 to 60% of fantasy leagues, or even more in my opinion. Now to Trey Sermon. Sermon, obviously, next week, he's definitely going to be active in my opinion here for this 49er team after being inactive in this game. And he's 91% owned in fantasy leagues. So right here, we'll see if he's going to be the #1 back now. But like I mentioned, I think him and Mitchell are going to split. Mitchell looked good, though, for the 19 touches he had in that ball game. And Hasty was the third-string running back. So maybe Hasty gets a shot to play with Mitchell, or maybe it's going to be Sermon here. But last season, we saw the same thing in the carousel of the backfield over here in San Francisco. We saw a lot of different guys play. We saw Tevin Coleman. We saw Mostert. They both went down. Jermichael Hasty, he was next man out. Then Jeffrey Wilson Jr. came back. So they had a lot of problems at the running back position last season here with San Francisco. But Trey Sermon, obviously, they were high on, and they drafted him this season in the NFL draft. So I think him and Mitchell are going to be the two front runners for, obviously, carries over there in San Francisco. Well, Mitchell's going to be the hottest pickup this week, in my opinion. No doubt about it for the fantasy football season. So right here, I think we're going to see a 50-50 split from both guys. And obviously, Mitchell looked good, so he might get the first crack. And obviously, a start next week at the Philadelphia Eagles in week 1, which is a pretty decent matchup, in my opinion, for this San Francisco 49er team. So another season, another bad start for Raheem Mostert, and he goes down with the knee injury. And the two favorites to get carries and pretty much all the work are going to be Eli Mitchell and Trey Sermon. And I break it down here going into next week after the injury news came out with Raheem Mostert.